Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Camille Nash, and welcome to the Bullpen. So, listen, here in the Bullpen, we talk straight and we talk everything media, ministry, money, and the marketplace. From time to time, we may even throw in a little bit of music. So, listen, if you've been on this journey with me for any length of time, you already know that I have this affinity for whales. I'd love to tell you that it was birthed out of some melodic story where you could hear the violins playing in the background, but no. It was actually created out of my own story of hurt to some degree. But I like to say I've had the privilege to be able to turn this thing around. So, over the last few years, especially during the pandemic, I was in a lot of rooms, boardrooms, courtrooms, and tons of social media rooms. And I got to tell you, I got tired of hearing men attempt to tell women how to live their lives and what it should look like, and vice versa. So I decided, why not create a space where I could invite men to come in from all around the world to really talk about what it looks like to be a man and what men should be learning from men, how to not only live a life that is whole, but how to live a life that is whole, healthy, alive, and not surviving, but thriving. So tonight, if you've been with us over these last several weeks, we've been talking a lot about Black excellence. And I love to say that I'm a Black woman and proud to say it. So we've been talking a lot about Black excellence and how to operate in that space in every area of life. So we have begun this conversation around film. So tonight we're going to be talking about Black excellence in film and the striking distance of it all and what really does it mean for people of color in the film industry. So the gentleman that I'm bringing to the platform tonight, I actually was introduced to him a few years ago now, a couple years ago, and I just loved his synergy. I definitely loved a lot about what he has done. And you all know what I love most about folks, period, people, period, is humility. And get surprised by a lot of the things that they've been able to do. This gentleman that I'm going to bring to the platform tonight is really resounding as a writer. He's phenomenal as a speaker. He loves people, even more, loves his family. But also, one of the things that truly drives him is to move our people and our messages forward. So without further ado, I'd like to take a moment to present to some and introduce to others. That in the form of Craig T. Williams.
What an amazing introduction. I love it. So excited to be here. Thank you, Camille, for having me and for, recognizing Black men in this space and, for giving some of us a platform who walk the walk and talk the talk and just do it quietly and sometimes loudly, depending on how close you watch me.
Right.
Really loud. But, we just do the thing every day. And that's how we live in the world. So thank you for recognizing that.
Absolutely my privilege and honor. Craig, I'm thinking right now when you said, depending on how often I watch you, I know you have a very unique dance. So I'll leave it at that. And you're really not only loud and proud about it, but you're also excited about it. So listen, Craig, our audience may not know you just yet. And of course, they're going to discover more about you and the things that you've done, a lot of what you've done over the years in film. And we know that right now it's in the news that the strike has come to I don't know that I really want to call it to a close, but I understand that there's a settlement to some degree. And because you are unique in the space that as a writer, director, you have also had your hands in some aspect of acting too. So the actors have just settled. What I'm going to do is just step back and let you share with our audience a little bit about you. And what are some of the things you hope to gain out of the conversation tonight, or even share with our audience what they can hope to take notes on?
Yeah, so Craig T. Williams, don't forget the T. I am a native New Yorker, Harlem born, literally born in Harlem Hospital. And I grew up in the Bronx, Harlem and the Bronx, where we lived. And at an early age, I learned how to play tennis. My mother was sort of a fan, and then, we had some family members who were fans, so I started to play. And I got really good at it. And then we discovered that there was this place in Harlem called the Harlem Tennis Center. And it was on the west side and 140th, 5th Street for you New Yorkers at the Tennis Armory. And it was there that I learned sort of discipline, and because I had to get up at 6 a.m. on Sunday mornings to go practice, walk across Harlem from my grandmother's house at 6 a.m. And, you know, sometimes, listen, this is real, like in the 70s and 80s. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes my family would be out there. So,
right.
But they were protecting me, you know, they were guiding me to walk across Harlem. And I took that skill and I became a tennis champion as a teen. And I went to Morehouse College and graduated with a degree in finance. And I got my first job out of college, and I quit after 3 months.
Oh, now wait a minute. You quit. Wait. Let's just stop right there. There's our connection right there with that part. Yeah. Okay, so 3 months.
Yeah.
You quit after 3 months.
Yeah.
What was the turning point? What happened?
It wasn't sitting in my spirit, you know, to just get up and go there every day and sort of this chase of money. And it was kind of the time where, you know, friends that I went to school with and my generation, you know, we were trying to get to Wall Street to make our fortune. And stockbrokers, because it was, you know, the me generation, greed is good, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of fell into that. And then I was like, yeah, it doesn't feel right. So I quit. It was a very subject with mom.
Now wait a minute, we're in the same generation, so I already know that conversation might have been a little rocky. So let's talk about that. How'd that go?
I did it, right? I made it through. My son did. So this all, you know, we'll get to the whole raising a generation of people who are choosing not college. But for our generation, you know, it was a very big thing. You know, get educated. Our parents, they worked to get us to school, to college, to get an education, because that's how you're going to make it in the world. Yeah. And listen, I had that education. It was a great experience. But the path that I chose was something that I felt obligated to try. And then I tried it and I was like, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
So I quit. Okay, so what does a young Black man with a college education and no job do? I had one skill, and that was teaching tennis.
Okay.
And so I did that. And so I had sort of this hankering that came from my mom also. She was a traveler. She loved to travel. She would take us places. She took us to Broadway shows. She took us to plays. I saw The Wiz, the original version with Stephanie.
Oh, wow. With Stephanie Mills?
With Stephanie Mills.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
All right, so y'all doing the math in your head about who his brother is.
Yes. I don't know, but I'm with you.
So I had all that experience, and I knew also that I wanted to see the world. So what I did was I earned a lot of money because it was just cash.
Yeah.
And I traveled. I traveled everywhere. I went across the seas. I went to China. I went to Paris. I went to London. I went to Australia. I went everywhere my little heart wanted to go by myself because nobody could afford to travel with me.
Right.
And I'm taking all that, this world experience and meeting people everywhere. Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that happens when you travel and you meet people and they hear you're from New York and they hear Harlem, they're like, what's Harlem really like? And then I would get like, you know, do you know Biggie? Do you know? I was like, no, I do not.
Right.
But also what you got, which is really fascinating to me, which sort of started my journey as a creative, was how many times have you been shot?
You said SHOT?
SHOT. Because there, right? It wasn't if I had been.
Right.
It was how many? We just all up in here just getting shot every day of the week. It's like life don't work that way, y'all.
No.
But you see that what people are getting is that Black people are victims or villains because that's what they're seeing in their media. That's all. And then that's what sort of started my journey creatively, where I came back and I started writing. And then I threw myself into an indie film scene because I'm like, all right, the tennis thing is wearing itself out. And my mother's like, boy, enough playing.
Right. But that tennis was actually funding your dreams to a degree. keeping
Absolutely.
food on the table, right? So you obviously were really good, because you can't just do that haphazardly and be able to make a living doing it, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Immediately, as I'm thinking about you talking about, I know that question because I recall when I was a teenager, if I had met anybody from New York, that's kind of one of the first thing. I didn't ask about Biggie or if they had gotten shot, but I definitely asked, have they seen any violence? You ever
Right.
seen any cars on the sidewalk? Anybody
Mhm.
get hurt? That kind of thing, but not necessarily asking, have they been hurt? So what I want to dig into a little bit is that you almost very early realized that your path was going to be different,
Yeah.
and that you were going to settle into that creative side, even if you didn't really have a model, because
Right.
your parents were, most of our parents at that time were hardworking parents.
Yes.
If you're in a blue collar state, or manufacturing industry, a lot of that generation was more so manufacturing. We're more of a Gen X's are still more of a manufacturing, but really more about education, more education driven, more position driven, more title driven. Whereas our children, I mean, I'm Gen X, I believe you are too, and
Yeah.
so like Gen Z, which we'll come back
Yeah.
the variations in the generations. But I want to look more at you being a creative, and so what did it look like for you to be able to take the leap to say, okay, I'm going to go about this by any means necessary to make my own way or open my own door?
Yeah. So it's and I can't imagine. I don't remember the moment. I just knew that I was a fan of TV and film and seeing myself.
Mhm.
And there were many things. I mean, it's a little problematic now, but I remember watching like Uptown Saturday Night,
Mhm.
and Let's Do It Again, and
Yeah.
all the Richard Pryor movies.
Mhm.
And my father inappropriately took me to see Coffee, starring Pam Grier, when I was like 8 years old.
Oh,
Just
wait.
not really.
Inappropriately. Hey,
You should not be taking an
don't
8-year-old to see a
tell your
picture.
mama. You tell your mama what we did. Don't tell mama now. Don't tell nobody.
So it's I felt like there's something was birthing me that I wanted to say something, but I didn't know how.
Yeah.
So I just started meeting creative people here in New York, and one thing led to another, and I'm on sets, and I'm learning the craft of being a filmmaker. And then the writing bug started, and it really didn't start until I went on a set one day, and a friend of mine who was directing this movie, and the star of the movie was the most beautiful woman I had ever met. And
Who was that? Was that Pam
the,
Grier?
no, I wish.
Who was
Although I
that?
did meet her like
Okay.
at a party, but that's years later. Okay,
Yeah.
but this is the first woman. She was the star of the movie, and we hung out and we clicked, and we are married 22
I
years
was
later.
gonna say this has got to be your wife.
It is, yes.
Home security, honey. You were wait. We gotta fix that. Yes, that's what I meant to say. That's what I was waiting for. To say, okay,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
most beautiful woman you ever met.
yeah,
So you all clicked right away. You had
yeah,
kindred spirits. I see a lot of what you all do, and we'll get into a
yeah,
lot of work that you all have been able to do collectively at the same time by holding one another up, supporting each other through the vicissitudes and challenges in the industry, because it's not always peaches and cream as people
Oh,
may
it's not.
believe at all.
No.
They see the glory, but they don't know the story behind it. So you meet her, and tell us what happens after that.
And so that film that we were in ended up getting into Sundance, which is a very big, the
Yeah,
biggest, film festival for those of you
festival.
who may not
That's
know.
a big deal.
And so we went together. It was like our first big date, our first big test after we had just been like, dating, just over a few months.
Yeah.
And while we were there, we saw like the filmmakers, how they were really moving differently. My wife is an actor, and she
Yeah.
was in the movie, and she was also in like 2 other movies at Sundance that year. And I
Wow.
didn't know that because this is before Google. And I'm
Wow.
like, who is this chick that I'm hanging out with?
She didn't tell you.
She didn't tell me. Not a word.
Right.
Not a word. So we're seeing that, and then we made a promise to ourselves that we were going to come back to Sundance as filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got married. We took our wedding money, and we bought a camera. And
like a video camera, photograph camera.
Really expensive video camera.
Okay.
At the time, it was the beginning of the digital age. So most people were making things on film, but there were these new digital cameras that were being invented.
Yeah.
And we bought one. It was like $3,000, which was a ton of money.
Yeah.
To spend on a camera. And we used it. We started making films because what we wanted to do was like we wanted to make films, but we had also known people from our experience who had spent a lot of money on films and owed money ever because it's an expensive hobby.
Yes.
So we started making practice films. Like, let's just make a short film, like a practice film.
Okay.
And like that practice film got into 25 film festivals.
Come on here. Wait a minute. This practice film. I'm still stuck at this. I'm sitting at the part where she agreed to take the wedding money.
Yeah. It was her idea.
Whoa. You knew she was a keeper for sure.
It was her idea.
My God.
The secret in this relationship is like she's the techie. Me, listen, I'd still be using a phone with a cord attached to the wall. It wasn't for her. So, I still have an iPhone too, but she makes it. But she's like the one.
Everybody that.
I know, but she's the tech.
In
addition to being creative, she loves computers and technology. She's a early adapter. On Twitter, days after it opened, every new phone we get, it's a very expensive life. But she sort of keeps us on the edge of technology.
Of course.
And that's how we've been able to adopt over 20 years of making films.
So let's talk about what was that film that you all made. We have to know. The public has to know. What was that film?
Easy.
You said 25 entries?
Yes, it made it into 25 film festivals, and it was called Driving Fish.
Okay.
And
film.
The film is essentially about a young woman with daddy issues. I mean, that's the easy way to sum it up. But it was that. Listen, it was really beautiful, and we had some amazing talent. We had Isaiah Whitlock, who was in what was it? Isaiah's in a bunch of stuff. If you look up Isaiah Whitlock, but he was in The Wire. He played the mayor. He's been in it. So we knew a lot of Broadway and New York actors, and then we would ask for favors.
I was just going to ask you, like, because you're building at that time, you're cultivating. So I know that it sounds like, without you saying it just yet, that you were utilizing your relationship capital that you had developed over time, and they were willing to step up. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that's my my advice to young filmmakers who are making their first film. Right, you can get away with this on your first film, which is ask for help, ask for favors. People are a lot more generous. By the time you get to 3 and 4, and you still asking for favors, you need to change your methodology. Because you can't be asking for favors time after time after time. Yeah. And it was that way in raising money for our first film, which before, it was before any of the social media, it was before GoFundMe. I actually wrote, and this is my business background, I wrote fundraising letters to all our family and friends saying, Craig and Roz are making a movie. Will you donate to our film? Yeah. And to mail, because you had to mail it out.
Right. Back then.
To come back.
This is before email, everybody. This is before
email. Even. Yes. Yeah. And I raised $40,000.
Nice.
Because people really wanted to help.
Yeah.
So you have to be a good person in the world for people who want to give to you. Yeah. And I tell that to young filmmakers all the time. There's somebody out there that wants to help you. You have to reach out to them, but you have to reach out to them correctly. You have to have your plan in place. You have to have your vision in place. You can't just say, give me some money or tell me how to do it. That's not going to work. But they saw that we had a vision. They saw we put together everything. We got this actor, we got this crew, we got all these things. So I knew what it cost and I knew what we were spending. And I said, this is what we need. How can you contribute? And people they came from everywhere. Her grandmother, who lived in Detroit, she called us one day. She's like, I hear you raising money and you haven't asked me for any money.
Well, and?
And Grandma Louise I was like, Grandma Louise, I mean, you're retired. We don't want to, burden you. She's like, boy, I can buy and sell you. Right. Now, how much you want me to send? And she sent us a check.
She said she could buy and sell you.
Buy and sell us, yes.
Okay. So don't count grandma. Don't count
No,
grandma.
no.
I love that. You know, hearing that story automatically immediately reminds me of Spike Lee. You know, his mother or his grandmother took all of her Social Security checks that she saved up for 2 years and gave him that money as seed money to do the right thing.
Yeah,
and,
she's gonna have it. His first film. Yes.
Oh, she's gotta have it. Yeah, I knew it was the first one, so she's gotta have it. And I'm reminded that there are people that will believe in your dream, but you do have to put your hand up, right? You do have to ask, and at the same time, you have to have, in my opinion, you have to have done your due diligence too first, because you know, I've been in media since 1989, and in various aspects of it. And what I know for sure is that people aren't willing to just open up their checkbook and write a check for something that hasn't happened yet without some clarity on what it looks like or what the hope is. Now, if it's a gift, it's a gift. But if it's more or less because they want to help you garner and bring something to life, and you've done your part, then they're down for it. So let's talk about you get this $40,000. Are you blown away by the yeses? That finance undergrad came in handy, huh?
Really did, right? Yes.
Yes.
So blown away by the generosity and the belief that people have just bestowed upon you. It's like, yeah, we believe in you. Go do it. And we did it, and we did the work, and that film, it paid off. Now the thing is, like, short films don't make money back.
Right.
So that's kind of the caveat. But still, it launched us, and it launched us as a couple, as a brand. We started our production company with that, Redwall Productions. I'm usually wearing a T-shirt that says Redwall, but I don't have it today. But here's my phone, it says Redwall Productions. And it really launched us. There I am. And it really, and this was, again, you know, the time of the beginning of the digital revolution. So we were also on the cusp. It's also the beginning of a whole lot of Black film festivals. So there had not been many before then. So it was the beginning of all these relationships that we still have to this day with all those people who have stayed in the business and moved to different places and moved here and moved there, kept it going. And because we all started at the same place, I have relationships with people, and that's helped my career as I've gone on, because that person may not be making films anymore, but they're an executive here, or they're a producer on, or they're an actor on the lead of this show. So a lot of that came from those early days.
So they're more or less, even though they may not be operating in that same space today, they may be operating in a different place, but you all are still able to bridge your connection and look at, you know, if it makes good sense to work together. So with you and Roz having been connected at the hip, I mean, not just obviously by vows, but also in business. A lot of couples don't do well working together in business. And they just don't. The percentages are very high. So before we get into some of the other projects and some of the bigger doors that have opened for you, what have you all been able to do as a family, as a couple, before you began to bring on your offspring to the world? What are some of the things that you all have been able to do as a couple, or at least, especially with you being the Levitical priest of your home? I'm one of faith, so I bring my faith with me, and and certainly being the head of the house. What are some of the things you've done, being a creative, to really facilitate you all keeping the main thing?
Yeah. So the main thing was, of course, respect for each other. And we had a respect for each other's craft and ability. And we made decisions about who was going to do what. So I actually don't direct. I don't like directing.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
But also I live in here, you know, with my wife, and she's the boss, so she's the director.
Okay.
I'm no fool, right? But I like producing and I like writing, right? So that was my area. She didn't like dealing with money. She didn't like dealing with, you know, all that other stuff that comes with putting projects together. So I'm the writer, I'm the producer, and then she's the director. And that's how we sort of separated. And then what we did in the early days, especially, was, again, because she's also our tech queen, she's also tech.
Yeah.
So she's getting the computer, she's buying the software, she's sort of leading us into, okay, this is what we need to do. All right, so I got the software, and then I would have to go learn it.
Yeah.
Right? Me kicking and screaming, it's like, I don't want it. But listen, right? This is the bargain. Right. So we sort of figured out what we're going to do, what our priorities are, which is the health and wealth of our family, right? And then what do we need to do? So, as a man, I got to make sure that I'm making choices that support her dreams, just like she supports mine. And there's no battle on things like dishes or laundry or any of those things. I was raised by a mother who raised 2 boys. She taught us, she says, listen, I work. She taught us how to sew, cook, clean, iron, all those things so that we could be self-sufficient in the world.
Yes.
And that's also, what makes me an attractive package.
Exactly. Look, I remember seeing a video of you even recently. I think you said you were mopping.
Yes.
And you said, this is what you said in the video. I know you remember what you said. You said, I'm writing.
Yes. As I'm mopping back and forth on the floor, I was like, what are you doing? I'm writing.
And Rosalyn was just said, okay. She said, okay, well, let me know when you want to do some more writing in another room.
Exactly.
I thought that was precious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we just, we made it really clear. And we also, I want to disparage anybody who's younger, but we also weren't like in our 20s. True. We were also grown. So we'd had life, we'd had relationships, we'd had other experiences, and we started to narrow down who we are.
Correct.
More so than what we want.
Exactly.
So you know who you are, and then you meet this other person, and that starts to gel. He's like, okay, like, all right, some things I like about it, some things I don't, but it's all a negotiation. But underneath is love and respect.
So one thing I saw that you all did a lot of, or at least I don't consider myself, I think they call it stalking. I don't consider myself stalking anybody, but I do look. Because if you put it out there, then I'm going to look. And if I happen to see it, I'm looking. But I do recall seeing a lot of you all really taking time, in my mind, the way I saw it, especially, the percentages are generally very high for people that are married in the entertainment industry, with them not staying together and divorcing. And one item or one thing that lifts very highly for me concerning you all as a couple, having never met you face to face, social media has a proclivity to make you think you know a person when you don't. And but one thing I really appreciate about both of you is the fact that you seem to make time to enjoy each other. And of course, you don't have to share your world, but you do, and you do it in such a way because you all are comfortable being in front of the camera. I know you say you don't like it, but you do it. And but just dining, talking about what you're eating, and really enjoying one another, and willing to share that with the rest of the world. How has that been a huge contribution to what you all do behind the scenes?
Yeah, so that came out of the pandemic. And because we were all in here, all day, like everybody else in the world. And like, she loves the political channels. Me, I can't stand listen to the chatter all day. Me, I'd rather watch a Law and Order or Golden Girls or something else. I like to sort of keep my mind clean in between writing. And at the end of the day, we would not have talked to each other all day. And usually we have projects that we're talking about, or, our sons at school and all those things that we're sort of managing. All of that, like for everybody else, it went away. So it was just her idea. It's like, all right, we're just going to put the camera up, and it's like, what do you want to talk about? And we just started to relate to each other. And, she's hysterical, and she doesn't think she's funny, but she cracks me up. And that's what you see. You see 2 people who really just kind of enjoy listening to the crazy come out of each other's mouth without judgment, without, it bothers me. But that's also longevity, right? We've gotten over all those other humps. And when I have a few friends who are in relationships, and like, well, how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you do all that stuff? I'm like, all right, here's my version of long-term relationships, right? Okay, so
here we go.
You spend the first part of your relationship, however many years that is, trying to make the other person change.
What? Well.
Okay, right? And that person doesn't change, right?
We know how that's gonna
we know how that's gonna work. Okay. Then the next chunk is you're mad because the other person has not changed. And that's when things start to fall apart. Yeah. That's when the rubber meets the road. We're like, why don't she just listen to me? If she did what I told her, we'd be perfect. And she's saying the same thing.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you weather that storm, whether it's your faith, whether it's stick-to-itiveness, whether it's underneath love and respect. Because you got to remember, there's a time when there was great love and respect between you two.
Yeah.
Where you wanted the best for each other. That has not changed. Hopefully, you still want the best for that person. So even though they're not changing, even though you told them to, you give them all the hints in the world that you need to change.
You told them to.
Yes, right?
They didn't get the memo.
They didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
And then we got to this point, and I think it was, just a little bit before the pandemic, was like, listen, I ain't gonna change. You ain't gonna change. But there are places where we meet in common.
Yeah.
And we concentrate on those.
Yeah.
I'm still stubborn. I am still obstinate.
Oh, no, not you. Oh, no. Oh, no.
I am, absolutely. She's like, why won't you do right? It's just, why won't you just, I try and offer suggestions, and it's like, because I don't want your suggestions. I got it. I figured it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when she stopped trying that, and I stopped trying, to sort of, I can't control mouth or behavior, and especially, when it came to our son, which is, she's sort of here in sort of mom excitable level. Like when something happens, she's like, right? She's on it. She wants to fix it. And I'm more chill.
Yeah.
With him. I'm like, all right, listen, he's a boy. He's a kid.
Yeah.
He's gonna fix it. He said, no, we need to do this. We need to do that. And so we both have those different energies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it really came to a head, where it's like, we gotta understand that we are people that have different reactions to what's happening.
Yeah.
And I have to respect her reaction to it. I can't change it. That's who she is. That's how she came to me. That's how I came to her. I'm just chill, right? I don't get level 10 about really anything. Unless you mess with my family, or unless my son acts up and he disrespects my wife.
Yeah.
That brings me to level 10.
Oh, well, hopefully he doesn't do that.
No, he has.
Well.
But that's his growth journey, right? They got to push the envelope, or they got to do that. But he's got to know that I'm right here.
Right. And I'm not going anywhere.
Listen.
Right.
I get it, but it's my job.
Yes.
To get in your face about everything. If I don't do that, I am not doing my job, because the world does not love you as much as I do.
Nope, not at all.
The world has already judged you, and they don't even know you. I know your heart. I know your intentions. I know how smart you are. I know how much you want.
Yes.
And I'm going to make sure you have the good sense not to take your behind out there and think that the world's going to take your nonsense. They are not.
They
don't do that for black boys. They don't do that for black men.
They do not. And you lead me right into a great topic. First, how old is your son?
He's 19 now.
19. I knew I didn't know if he was almost 20 or 20 yet. So now that he's 20, we have to have that proverbial talk, and we have it very early. I believe we're having it earlier.
Yeah.
Your son, is he involved in theater or film at all? Is he a creative? Does he find any of it enlightening, interesting? Is something that he wants to pursue at all?
Yeah, he's a musician.
He's a musician. Okay.
Musician.
Yeah.
Now, earlier, we were because my wife went to Howard and I went to Morehouse. Her dad was, they're all educators. Her dad was provost at Howard. Her mother was vice principal at schools in the DMV area. So we come from education. And so, when it was getting time, he would say to my wife, I'm not going to college. Now he did that like in, mid-teens, 14, 15. And, she's rising to the bait. I'm like, babe, he's just pushing your buttons.
Yeah.
Don't rise to the bait. Don't think. But it's like, we got to let him figure it out. He's at that age where he's absolutely here to drive us crazy. Definitely. So anything we want him to do, he's not going to do. So let's just let it go. And that was part of us sort of learning each other. It's like, I don't want you say to him what you want to say, but I'm just saying you don't need to bring all that to me because I see what he's doing.
You see it. Yeah, you can see it right. You can see it right away. So when we look at our people, black excellence, and really that being the focus, and all of the things that you've done in film, I am certain without question that you take a lot of some of the experiences that you have had as a professional and as an African American man, raising an African American man, also making major impact to other people of color all over the world as they participate and parlay into a lot of the writing and what you've been able to do. What has been the most exciting part of your journey? I mean, you have accomplished some great things, and you've been on various platforms, and you are a very humble man. What are some of the, when it comes to a lot of what you've already done, is there anything particularly that really, it's all important work, but is there something that you have done that really just lifts right to the top for you and was probably some of your greatest work? Is there anything particular, and if so, what is it and what did it mean to you?
Yeah, so a lot of what I get to sort of do now, so there's a TV show. I got to be on my first TV show that happened earlier this year.
Wait a minute, what was the TV show? Okay.
It's called Terror Lake Drive.
Okay.
And it's on the All Black Network. And it actually premieres this Thursday, November 16th.
My timing's perfect.
How about that? You didn't even know that. Yes.
I knew about the show, but I did not, some things I don't want to know intentionally. And I just knew about it, but I didn't know it was premiering this week.
It's first episode. Yes. So it's the third season of this show. Okay. And essentially it's it sort of centers around there's if those in Atlanta, it's called Lake Lanier, where there was basically one of those black towns that was decimated by riots from white people.
Okay.
So the show centers around this fictional place called Lake Levy, where there were black people who were drowned in the water from riots, but the ancestors now live in the water. Right. And so what has happened over the years is housing developments have sprung up around the lake, but the ancestors in the lake don't like any shenanigans that go on in the housing. And so this is the third season of it. And it's an anthology show, which means every year has been a different story.
Yeah. Okay.
So this particular season, it takes place 5 years after the last show, season 2, where it ended, where the housing development around the lake was torn down in a riot, wanting to get black people out of there. And now when we come to this third season, it is got mega mansions all around it, all owned by white people.
So this is a true story.
This is true-ish, right? It's not real.
Okay. So it's derived from a true story, but
so
it changed. Okay.
Yeah. So essentially, what it is how do we honor the people who have died in those riots, whether it's Tulsa or any of the other dozens of places around this country where angry white people were mad at the black people who were doing well. And they tore down their communities, killed people, not just tore down the communities. They killed people. People died, right? So in our story, the ancestors protect the black people, particularly the black women, have a connection to the ancestors in the lake. They are their protection. So when they're in harm, the ancestors in the lake inform them that there's harm around them so that they can deal with their circumstances. So without giving too much away about the season.
I got it. You got me. You got me. You caught me. You caught me. And I hope you all are paying attention because you caught me. I'm hoping you caught me.
So that's what the season is about. A Black family moves into, they inherited a house that they didn't even know belonged to them. And of course, the people who own it did not know that one house was owned by a Black man.
Wow.
And he leaves it to his family in a will, and they come and they move in, and then stuff happens.
Yeah. So this connection for this show, was this more about relationship capital too? You kind of heard about it. I know in media, especially in film and Broadway, folks keep their ears to the ground and everybody stays connected. So folks kind of know when things are happening. Is this a different genre for you, or is this right up your alley? This is exactly what you were hoping to do.
Yeah. So it is labeled as sort of a horror show.
I was ready to ask that.
Right?
I was ready to ask that.
But it's not horror, because I don't want people to be mad at me. It's not horror in the traditional sense. It's not going to be like slashing, even though there's a little bit of slashing there. It's off camera. But really, it is the horror of what has been done to Black people.
Yes.
How we overcome that. And how the horror still exists.
Yeah.
Because as soon as this Black family moves in, the first thing people want to do is move them out.
Move them out, yeah.
And so they're terrorizing them. They're using the Black people who all work at the place to also terrorize them. So it is about the triumph of the spirit and triumph of being of the horror of sort of living under these circumstances and having to fight for our humanity.
Yeah, I love that this really the synergy is just unbelievably. I couldn't have planned this any better, because a gentleman I just spoke with, we were talking about this, and he was explaining how, not even talking about economically what's there in horror or any aspects of it, but also that many of us, especially depending on your generation, you had your own thoughts about horror being gory or gruesome, whereas the way he explained it is so spot on with what you've explained. It just intertwines, where it's the horror of our lives.
Yes.
The horror of real experiences, especially for people of color, for us. Yes. And of course, you have all the other elements that are thrown in.
Yeah.
When you suggest that it's a lot of your greatest work, and you've done a lot. You've done work with the Blacklist. You've worked with Warner Brothers. You've done a ton of things. And do you have a favorite genre? Or is this right exactly where you want to be and believe is your call right now?
What I tell people is I write the grounded Black family experience.
Nice.
Because that is who I am, right? So that's come through in anything that I write, whether it's a Christmas movie that I already wrote, that I also wrote, a Christmas movie musical. I can't sing. I can't play a tambourine.
But Rosalyn can.
But I wrote a musical because it's like my spirit was telling me that the story that I had around a very wealthy Black family at Christmas, I wanted to tell it this way. And it's me in everything that I write. So I also have like a half-hour comedy that I wrote that's being shopped out right now. And it's called Call Me Daddy.
Okay.
And it's about,
Call Me Daddy. All right.
There you go. And
that can go a lot of different ways, but
wherever your mind went, I'm gonna let you go there.
There's a lot of ways with that one. Okay. Right. It's got to look, it's gonna get attention. That's what we want.
That's it. That is the point. It's intentional, right? But it's really about a 40-year-old and mostly stunted 40-year-old Black man who wants to have a baby on his own to be the father he never had.
I love that. I love that.
And what it really is examining is the sort of complicated relationships between fathers and sons. And in this particular case, it's the lead character was raised by his mother and his stepfather. Yeah. And so there's tension there because, and it's similar to my situation where, I had a stepdad, but I was not calling him father because he was not.
So were there butting of the heads there? And was your biological dad still alive?
There was no butting of the heads because I did not talk to him.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
at all.
At all. In the house.
Never in the house. Did not talk to him.
Okay.
Period.
How old were you?
From 7 to when I left.
Craig, you're peeling back the layers right here. I listen. You all listen. 7 until what? Like 18?
Yeah.
So how does that work?
It's just he's there, I'm there. I ain't got nothing to say to the man.
Okay, and what does mom say about all this?
Mom is doing the best she can. She's trying to facilitate. But okay, so here's the thing, because I want people to sort of understand, right? That's
what we want to bring it in. We want to show them how obviously there's a lot you learn from it.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. So my dad was alive until I was 12, but they got divorced when I was 4. And I saw him maybe once or twice. Once to take me to a Pam Grier movie, and then like one birthday party. And I didn't see him again. He died. He died of an aneurysm. He spent most of that time while we were apart in jail too. So all that stuff was going on. And I got a stranger in my house, who I don't know, who also has 2 other kids.
Did they live with you all?
No, they did not. Because, it's very complicated that he had an ex-wife who had some mental health issues, who did not want his children to live with us, but she also didn't want them.
This is all great life material.
It is, right? And so they were forced to live with an aunt. So what my stepdad did every day, because he also worked 6 days a week, he would go to them after work. He'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go to work, go see his kids after work, homework, dinner, come to our house. He'd get there maybe 8, 9 o'clock. We're kids. We're in bed at the beginning. So we just really never see him except on weekends when maybe we go to Dairy Queen and get some ice cream. So that was the pattern.
How do you find out about this, though? I mean, you're a kid. How
later,
do you know?
Right? I find this out later. But in it, parents don't, at least at that time, they're not sharing. This is just what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
So he wasn't my dad. He was my mother's husband. Right.
Is he still alive today?
He died 2 years ago.
Okay.
Right. And so my mother died first. She died 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. So this is when the transformation happens, right? So now I've raised a son or raising a son, and my mom dies, and they've been together 40 years, whatever it is. And now because his 2 kids don't live here, one lives across country, one lives up east, I'm the one to take care of him.
Yeah.
And this is when I find out that this is easily the most decent man I've ever met in my life.
Oh my gosh. Wait a minute. Okay.
Decent, honorable, hardworking, handshake is his bond. He just, because my mother had a little bit of money and she left it. He's like, here, I don't want it. And he put it in my son's savings account.
Wow.
So
and what did that do for you in that moment? That
makes me feel like a jerk.
Well.
Right, but I'm also
years though, Craig. All those years.
All those years. Yeah. Right. Well, I'm resentful.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I say in the pilot that I wrote, which is, and it's my therapy, which is, if I had called you dad, my other dad would not have returned.
Wow, that's gonna be great. That's gonna be a great show. You're doing it as a film or
it's a TV show.
TV series. Oh yeah. That's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be good. That's gonna be good, Craig. That's gonna be great.
Yeah. So that's that's the thing that I'm really most proud of. It's closest to me. It's my story. It is a lot of people's stories with step parents and because listen, my parents split. So essentially, we're that statistic of single mom. Yeah. It's terrible. I used to tell people that my mother was a single mother, but she wasn't. They had each other, and whatever deal they had, they supported each other. They raised 4 kids. Yeah. Because she was his kid's mother, just as she was ours, my brother and I.
Yeah.
And now on this side of it, I see all the stuff that kids don't have access to They aren't. It's because really they won't understand. And
Right.
sometimes you don't even care to, because you just know what you want. You want what you want. That's part of growing up. That's part of
It
survival.
is.
All those things. And then you learn things later. Like,
Yes.
oh man, why was I so problematic? And I say that to my son now, right? Because I'm like, listen, you won't understand how good you have it until. And
a
I
lot,
know
and a lot of it is because, and a lot of it is because we won't tell them.
right.
We're not really forward with them. And let me tell you something. I just believe that this TV series that you're doing will be life changing for people, because I've spoken now with about 14 different men. I mean, really from all walks of life, even up to royalty at this point. And what I know for sure is that that support system is so important, and there's still so much that our men don't share with each other. And that's why I know that this space that we're holding for our men is not only pivotal, but it's necessary.
Absolutely.
And the work that you're going to do with that show, I believe, is going to just really catapult people's lives in a way that's unprecedented, because it will, to some degree, force you to deal with your hurt. You know, we grew up on our own shows of television that we watched. I don't know what your favorite one was. You could probably tell us in a minute.
Good time.
Good time. Okay, good times. Good times.
Yeah.
Cosby's, whatever it might have been.
Absolutely, yes.
You know, during that time, you say what you want about him. We're not here to talk about Bill Cosby right now, but what I know for sure, as a Black man, he changed lives. Not only in the media space, in television and film, he also
education.
Education
and HBCUs went up exponentially because of the Cosby Show.
Education, and let's not forget, he was the person that pushed forward for our Black stuntmen, or men, for us to have Black stunt men and women behind the scenes. So he was fighting for people behind the scenes where folks watching the screen knew nothing about. So I will never, just wipe away or wash away anything anyone has done that's great, because we all have something that we carry when we've had moments that have not been our proudest. When we talk about
no disrespect to the women that he harmed, the family that he harmed, his wife who's been by his side, whatever their deal is, they made their deal. That's fine with them. But the work that he did out in the world is what affected all of us. And there's no reason I should let that go because he's a problematic human being.
Yeah. And I'm not gonna, because we don't know, like I said, I wasn't there, and I'm not making excuses for anyone. I just know that we all have something that we have experienced in our life where it's not been our proudest moment. Right. So speaking of which, we know that the show is coming. You're definitely going to keep me updated on what's happening with, I believe that that's going to be a phenomenal TV series, and I know Roz will probably make her way at some point on the screen. I hope anyway. And when it comes to all of the work that you've done, and even your life's experiences, your life's journey that has brought you to this place. When it comes to people in film and using their life's experiences, what advice would you give those writers that are listening right now, or even contemplating writing? What advice would you give them on how to use it all, how to use their life's journey and life experience to share their message?
Yeah, I talk to a lot of writers about that. It's a very tricky space that you have to navigate, because you want to tell your story, but it's not a documentary, right? It's not a tell-all book. So you still have to make it entertaining. So even in whether I'm writing a Christmas movie, which is again about divorce, really, when it comes down to it, and how a family reconciles itself, where you see that they have everything in the world, but their parents are about to split up, and what that does to the adult children and the minor child living in the house. So how does that affect them? And I also have a film called Unravel and Cut. And it's about, it's a script, out there. And our executive producer is Viola Davis. And it's about my bipolar brother. So while I was growing up in the household with my parents, my brother was having all these issues. And this is before we had a name for it. This is before we had therapy for it. This is before we had a diagnosis for it. So I'm telling that story. So I have to take my personal experiences, and this is what I share with young filmmakers. I have to take those personal experiences and move them away from myself, in a sense. So I'm not telling my story. I'm telling a story about this family, but there's so much of me in it. But I have to make sure that it is entertaining, that it is funny where it's supposed to be funny, that it's got to have drama and stakes in it. It's got to do all those things so it doesn't feel like I am just sort of regurgitating my life. Truthfully, nobody cares about what went wrong in your life. We only care about what's wrong in our life. And when we look to movies, when we look to film, we look to see ourselves. And we also look to see how a person deals with that. And so much of what I'm reading for people from young writers who have these really personal stories is that they haven't moved through it like I did, or in some in some respects, there's some things that I've moved through. There's some that I haven't. But you have to move through it to get to the other side of it, to be able to tell people this is how I navigated it. And when you do that, it becomes something that has value to the world.
My goodness, I think that is just powerful. Craig, I have a real, not only respect for you, but my gosh, I definitely find the work that you've done, not just the work that you've done on paper and on film, but really the work that you've done or allowed to be done within you, I think is admirable and certainly remarkable when it comes to our men. And what I know for sure is that you're certainly changing lives one film at a time, one movie at one film, one television show, one word at a time. And so I'm grateful for this conversation. There's a question, and I can't even believe we're already out of time, but there's a question that I ask everyone, and I'd really love to hear what your thoughts are. And that is, what would you say is the lesson that took you the longest to learn?
Oh, the lesson that it took me longest to learn was that I am enough.
Ooh, yes, that's good. You are enough, and that you definitely are.
Yeah.
I'm really thrilled about all of the work that you're doing, and I just know that I can only imagine. Like, how does your son feel about everything that you're doing, and that you've been able to?
It's an amazing thing to watch, which is he's getting it now. He's very proud. He asks, if I have to go on a trip or do something, or I'm working on something, he's like, Dad, I'm really proud of you. And to hear that come out of his face after getting through all we had to get through those teenage years, which people warn you about, but until you experience it, he's like, not my child. It's like, yes, you're a child. To sort of and see him really finding himself and finding his voice. And I think that has a lot to do with he sees it here every day. He sees it in me. He sees it in his mother. He sees it in us as a unit, working together and building together and creating together. Also living apart, because I do my own thing. My wife does her own thing. She does Broadway film and television. She's got her job. She's working right now. So he's seen that, and him now being an artist, and he's got a job. He's in school. Just stuff I could not have imagined when he said, no, I'm not going to college, but yet he's finding his way. And I love that he recognizes that, and that we've made room for his art, because we had badger him to like, you have to go to Morehouse, you have to go to wherever. We're like, you know what? This is your journey. How can we support you? But you got to be clear about what you want. You got to make some decisions. It may not be the right decision, but not every decision is going to. Listen, I went to school for 4 years. That decision didn't necessarily work out for me. It did, long run,
long term.
But at the time, it was a thing.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And we just and it's funny because I definitely see a parallel. You only have one son. I've helped raise multiple children, but my youngest son is the Gen Z. And I like to say, especially during the pandemic, one of the lessons that he really taught me most is giving him the freedom to figure it out.
Absolutely.
And that's hard because we weren't taught that way. We were taught you better have a vision, you better have a goal, you better make sure you go to school. And
Yes.
we know now because they didn't have access. So they
Yes.
were really trying to push us toward gaining something that they didn't have access to. So
Yeah.
that's really what it's all about. But again, it has been my privilege and my pleasure to have you
Thank you.
today. I have enjoyed you and every single moment of it. And I do hope that our guests our audience will definitely appreciate everything that you shared. So it has been my distinguished honor to have you today. And again, I can't wait to see all that is forthcoming for you.
Thank you, Camille. It's been awesome. Appreciate you.
My pleasure. We'll see you around. All right, you all. Well, wasn't that? Now, listen. I hope you all wrote that down. Call me your daddy. That I just know is going to. I'm just putting it out there in the atmosphere right now. I believe that is going to be life-changing for multiple generations to come. So I hope you all enjoyed that. My wealth theory is pretty simple tonight. I really just want to take a moment to remind us all that there are no mistakes in life. We might feel like it, but it's all going to push us forward and toward those things that we were really called to do. And if we learned nothing from Craig tonight, which we learned a lot, didn't we? We learned the necessity to tell our story and to use and infuse a lot of what we've experienced in that story, and not take it for naught, not take it where it doesn't mean anything, because it definitely has some major value, and not only for us, but value for all of those that it will touch. So I hope you have enjoyed our show tonight. I do need to remind you, if you have not, please be sure to go over to our Facebook group. I just changed it from private to public. So now you can go in there, the Bullpen Show with me, Camille the Redhead, so that you can keep up with all of our guests that have come on the show thus far and all of those that are forthcoming. And we want to make sure that you don't miss not one moment, because our guests, they're going to keep getting bigger. And I can only do that with you actually doing your part, which is staying connected, going over to YouTube. You can certainly, if you've enjoyed this live, be sure to comment, like, and or subscribe. And otherwise, again, it's been my pleasure to have you tonight, and we will see you in our very next episode. Good night.